Chapter 10. Neither the will nor the degree of freedom are chosen. After understanding that the will arises without being chosen, many people try to preserve one last refuge of control. Something like, all right, maybe I don't choose what I want, but at least I choose how much I can resist or control that wanting. This idea is intuitive, comforting, and once again misleading. It starts from the feeling that self-control is a neutral power, equally available to everyone, requiring only willpower. But it is enough to observe reality with a bit of honesty to see that this does not hold. The degree of freedom we have in the face of a will is not chosen by us. It is given. Consider two people with the same desire to stop smoking. Both understand the risks, both want to change, both make promises to themselves. And yet one manages to quit with relative ease, while the other fails repeatedly, despite sincere effort. The difference is not in the existence of the will, it is present in both. The difference is in the internal structure available to deal with that will. This structure involves factors that were not chosen: genetic predisposition, emotional history, level of stress, social support, past experiences, mental health, the environment one lives in. None of these elements appears at the moment of the decision. They were already there when the will appeared. Saying, you just have to want it, ignores all of this. Here a discomfort arises that is deeper than in the previous chapters. Not only do we not choose the desire that arises, we also do not choose how capable we are of dealing with it. The degree of freedom is not an abstract possession of the individual. It is a variable condition, shaped by internal and external factors. This becomes evident in extreme situations. A person who is rested, emotionally stable, and supported reacts very differently from that same person exhausted, pressured, and fragile. The will may be the same, but the freedom to act upon it changes drastically. And no one chooses to be exhausted, fragile, or pressured in that instant. Law, morality, religion, education, and culture enter here as decisive forces. They do not create the will, but they delimit the space in which it can express itself. In some contexts, a will finds almost free ground. In others, it is strongly contained. This is not a moral failure. It is a structural condition. When we say that someone had no self-control, we are usually ignoring how much that self-control depends on factors that were not chosen. Control is not a key that everyone carries in their pocket. It is a capacity that develops or does not, according to what conditions allow. This recognition tends to cause a shock. If neither the wanting nor the strength to deal with the wanting is chosen, then the feeling of absolute authorship begins to collapse. And it is precisely here that the book reaches one of its most uncomfortable points. But, as you've already noticed throughout the reading, this discomfort is not gratuitous. It exists to tear a specific illusion. The illusion that everyone starts from the same point and fails only by moral choice. This illusion sustains hasty judgments, crushing guilt, and a notion of justice that is deeply unjust. When we abandon this illusion, something more refined begins to appear. Responsibility does not disappear. It becomes more precise. Instead of demanding that someone act beyond their conditions, we begin to ask which conditions must change so that another action becomes possible. This changes everything. Life stops being an abstract moral test and becomes a real formative process. Consequences no longer appear as punishment, but as part of the mechanism by which consciousness learns, matures, and reorganizes. Error is not an ontological failure. It is a sign of limits that still exist. At this point, inevitability stops looking like a prison and begins to reveal its function. Each consciousness does exactly what it can do in that instant. Not because it is perfect, but because it could not manifest anything beyond what its conditions allowed. Admitting this does not impoverish the world. It makes it more intelligible. The discomfort here is greater because the illusion that breaks is deeper, but it remains a passage. On the other side, an idea of justice begins to appear that does not punish the impossible, an ethics that works with what is real, and a view of responsibility that educates instead of crushing. In the next chapters, this distinction will be essential. We will need to separate, with definitive clarity, determinism from fatalism, and show why acting, choosing, and learning still make sense, precisely because things function the way they function. For now, it is enough to carry this idea with you without softening it. We do not choose what we want, nor how much we are able to resist what we want. And that is exactly why understanding conditions matters more than condemning people. The crossing continues.